It is exactly 11:45 p.m. on a freezing, rain-soaked Friday night. You are 20 years old, sitting alone on the edge of a cheap, unmade, deeply uncomfortable mattress that sits directly on the floor of a cramped, poorly insulated studio apartment. The air in the room permanently smells of stale laundry, damp drywall, and the lingering, greasy scent of cheap, microwave takeout food. The only source of light in the suffocating darkness is the harsh, unforgiving blue glare of your cracked smartphone screen, illuminating your exhausted, deeply stressed face. You are staring blankly at your mobile banking application. The available balance displayed on the screen is a depressing, multi-digit joke. You work a grueling, mind-numbing, entirely unrewarding entry-level corporate job that barely pays enough to cover your exorbitant city rent, your basic utility bills, and your weekly groceries. Every single dollar you earn is already mathematically spoken for, completely allocated to survival before the direct deposit even officially clears the banking system. You are living paycheck to paycheck, entirely trapped in the grueling cycle of modern economic survival. But tonight, sitting in the dark, you are making a conscious, deliberate decision that will fundamentally, irreversibly alter the entire financial trajectory of your existence. You navigate away from the banking app and open a discount retail brokerage application you downloaded earlier this afternoon. You carefully link your primary checking account. You navigate to the automated investment portal. You set up a recurring, ironclad, automated transfer. Exactly $100 every single month will be forcefully pulled from your account on the 15th and aggressively, blindly injected directly into a broad market, low-cost S&P 500 index fund. You take a deep breath. Your thumb hovers over the screen. You hit confirm. The screen flashes a bright, cheerful green. The machinery is in motion. The immediate, visceral reality of this financial decision is not liberating. It is physically, psychologically agonizing. When that very first $100 officially leaves your checking account, it feels like a heavy, painful, completely unfair extraction. At 20 years old, $100 is not just abstract digital paper, it is incredibly tangible. It is an entire weekend of groceries. It is a highly anticipated concert ticket. It is a long, reckless night out at the bars with your friends. It is the absolute difference between having a tiny margin of breathing room and suffocating under pure financial anxiety. You spend the next 12 months living in a state of absolute grinding, unrewarding friction. Every single month, precisely on the 15th, you watch that $100 vanish instantly into the invisible, digital ether of the global stock market. You log into the brokerage application obsessively, checking it daily, desperately hoping for a miraculous overnight surge in wealth. You look at the performance line chart. After one entire, agonizing year of painful, disciplined, relentless sacrifice, you have exactly $1,200 in principal and a pathetic, insulting, almost invisible $80 in market returns. The line on the graphical chart is practically flat. It looks like a statistical error or a glitch in the software. You sacrificed 12 nights out, 12 moments of fleeting joy, 12 opportunities for temporary relief, just to generate 80 completely inaccessible dollars. The math feels like a cruel, elaborate, deeply cynical joke played by old, wealthy men in tailored suits. The psychological warfare truly begins to destroy your resolve when you look closely at your immediate peer group. Your best friend, working the exact same entry-level corporate job with the exact same mediocre salary, makes a completely different, highly visible choice. He takes his extra $100 a month, aggressively combines it with his meager, depleted savings account, and confidently signs a crippling, high-interest, 7-year financing contract on a slightly used, aggressively tinted, black BMW 3 Series. The contrast between your two lives is immediate, stark, and utterly devastating to your fragile young ego. Your friend pulls up to your rundown apartment complex, the powerful German engine growling loudly, the pristine paint shining brilliantly under the flickering streetlights. He steps out wearing designer clothes bought entirely on high-interest credit cards. He gets the immediate attention of everyone on the street. He gets the visceral, intoxicating validation from strangers. He successfully projects the immediate, undeniable, highly polished illusion of extreme, ascendant success. He looks incredibly wealthy, powerful, and important. You, on the other hand, are driving a severely dented, 15-year-old Honda Civic with a failing, slipping transmission and a cracked windshield. You are eating high-sodium instant ramen noodles alone in the dark, and you are staring at a boring brokerage account that holds exactly $1,300. You feel entirely stagnant, completely invisible, and deeply, fundamentally foolish. The urge to immediately cancel the automated transfer, liquidate the boring index fund, pay the short-term capital gains tax, and buy a brand new iPhone or a designer watch just to feel something, just to feel like you exist in the world, is a physical burning, desperate itch in the back of your brain. The pressure to conform to the culture of immediate gratification is suffocating, but you force yourself to lock your phone. You swallow your bruised pride. You let the $100 pull on the 15th of the next month. You embrace the silent, invisible grind. Fast forward 6 long, exhausting years. You are now 26 years old. The brutal, exhausting, deeply unglamorous reality of the corporate 9-to-5 lifestyle has fully, permanently set into your bones. You are no longer the wide-eyed, optimistic 20-year-old hoping to change the world. You are a tired, caffeinated professional sitting in a gray, fabric-lined cubicle under harsh, flickering fluorescent lights, answering endless, passive-aggressive emails that do not actually matter. You commute in traffic, you sit in endless meetings, and you stare at spreadsheets until your vision blurs. But quietly, invisibly, operating entirely in the background of your mundane daily routine, the mathematical architecture of your life has begun to fundamentally, permanently shift. You have continued to let that $100 pull from your account every single month without fail. You completely ignored the terrifying, highly publicized market crashes. You ignored the screaming, panic-inducing headlines on the financial news networks predicting the end of the global economy. You ignored the geopolitical panic and the massive recessions. You did not try to time the market. You did not try to pick individual, high-risk tech stocks. You just let the automated machine run. The initial principle has finally baked in the oven long enough for the dark, powerful magic of compounding interest to officially awaken in the shadows. You log into the brokerage application on a random, rainy Tuesday morning while drinking your office coffee. You cross the very first major, highly psychological threshold. The account balance finally hits $10,000. Then, a few years later, driven by consistent contributions and dividend reinvestment, it violently surges past $20,000. The line on the graph is no longer a depressing, flat, horizontal crawl. It is beginning to form a subtle, undeniable, exponential upward curve. Then, it finally happens. The great defining momentum shift of your financial life. You reach the exact mathematical month where the underlying logic of the universe fundamentally changes in your favor. You are looking at your monthly brokerage statement. The broad stock market averages an annualized return of roughly 10% over the long term. With your aggressively growing portfolio now hovering around $20,000, your accumulated investments are generating roughly $160 a month in silent, automated, completely passive returns. You stare intensely at the glowing green numbers on the screen, and a profound, terrifying, incredibly liberating realization washes over your entire body. The interest earned on your portfolio is now mathematically generating more actual money than your physical, monthly out-of-pocket contribution. You are still putting in $100 of your own blood, sweat, and physical labor, but the portfolio itself, acting entirely on its own, is generating $160 of pure, unadulterated, effortless capital. Your money has officially, legally become a living, breathing entity. You have successfully hired a second, silent, perfectly obedient employee. This employee does not sleep. This employee does not take sick days or demand health insurance. This employee does not complain about the morning commute, does not ask for raises, and works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, violently and aggressively multiplying your wealth in the shadows while you sleep. The contrast with your immediate peer group is now a terrifying, incredibly bleak cautionary tale. You watch your friends and colleagues officially entering their 30s. This is the exact dangerous decade where lifestyle creep completely peaks and aggressively metastasizes into a terminal, incurable financial disease. The friend with the black BMW is now completely, hopelessly trapped. He upgraded to a newer, vastly more expensive, highly financed luxury SUV to aggressively maintain the exhausting illusion of his success. He financed a massive, heavily mortgaged, overpriced house in the suburbs that he cannot actually afford, just to impress neighbors he does not even actively like. He is drowning in crippling, 25% interest credit card debt, just to pay for luxury vacations and designer baby clothes. He is living the absolute, suffocating, terrifying reality of POV. You're 35 years old with $0 in savings. He earns a massive, impressive six-figure corporate salary, but his actual net worth is fundamentally, mathematically negative. He is a high-earning, highly stressed, perfectly dressed indentured servant to his own relentless consumerism. If he loses his job, he loses his house, his car, and his entire identity within 30 days. You, however, are still driving a highly practical, paid-off car. You are aggressively living below your means. You are wearing normal clothes, but you are quietly watching your silent employee effortlessly compound your wealth. You take a deep, calming breath in your gray cubicle. For the very first time in your entire adult life, you feel the subtle, refreshing breeze of true, absolute financial oxygen. You are no longer surviving. You are slowly beginning to conquer. You are now in your late 30s, approaching your early 40s. The physical and psychological toll of the relentless corporate rat race is glaringly visible on the exhausted faces of everyone around you. Your colleagues have prematurely graying hair, deep, permanent dark circles under their eyes, and a constantly vibrating, undeniable aura of high-functioning, medication-dependent anxiety. Middle management is an absolute, soul-crushing, bureaucratic nightmare of endless, unproductive Zoom meetings, constantly shifting quarterly KPIs, and the ever-present, looming, terrifying threat of aggressive corporate restructuring and sudden layoffs. But your internal reality is entirely, fundamentally disconnected from theirs. The simple, boring, $100 a month habit has completely transitioned from a basic, disciplined savings routine into a massive, impenetrable, psychological shield of titanium. The math has gone completely vertical. The line on your brokerage chart is climbing aggressively, violently up, and to the right. The constant, relentless, automated reinvestment of quarterly dividends, combined with the unstoppable, upward historical march of the S&P 500, has aggressively pushed your portfolio deep into the six-figure territory. You are sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars in highly liquid, aggressively compounding capital. You visualize this money entirely differently now. It is no longer just retirement savings, sitting in a theoretical, untouchable vault waiting for when you are old, sick, and gray. It is actual, physical, undeniable leverage. It is armor against the cruelty of the world. It happens during a brutal, high-stakes, incredibly tense Monday morning meeting. A toxic, deeply insecure, highly aggressive vice president begins violently screaming at your entire department over a minor, completely irrelevant missed quarterly metric. He uses degrading, insulting language. He loudly threatens everyone's jobs. He demands, without a hint of irony, that everyone completely cancel their upcoming weekend plans and ignore their families to fix a highly convoluted spreadsheet that does not actually matter to the company's bottom line. You look around the large, glass-walled conference room. You see your highly educated, highly paid peers physically shrinking into their expensive ergonomic chairs. You see 40-year-old men and women, heavily burdened by massive, adjustable-rate mortgages, exorbitant private school tuitions for their children, and massive, unpayable luxury car payments, utterly, fundamentally terrified of losing their bi-weekly paychecks. They have to sit there, lower their heads, and absorb the aggressive, toxic abuse. They are completely trapped by the financial mistake most high earners repeat. They aggressively upgraded their lifestyle to perfectly, exactly match their high income, leaving absolutely zero mathematical margin for error. Their shiny, impressive golden handcuffs are pulled so incredibly tight they are cutting off the circulation to their souls. You look calmly at the screaming vice president. Your resting heart rate does not elevate a single solitary beat. Your palms are completely dry. You do not feel an ounce of fear. You feel a profound, overwhelming, almost detached sense of pity for the people trapped in this room. Because you have a massive, six-figure safety net quietly and aggressively compounding in the background, you possess the ultimate, most terrifying superpower of the modern capitalist world. F you money. You do not yell back. You calmly, deliberately close your laptop. The click echoes loudly in the tense room. You stand up slowly in the middle of the screaming match. You look the toxic vice president dead in his aggressive eyes, and you calmly, professionally inform him that you will absolutely not be working this weekend. And if he ever speaks to you or your team in that highly unprofessional tone again, you will simply pack your desk, walk out the front door, and never return. The entire conference room goes dead, terrifyingly silent. The vice president stammers, the artificial, aggressive power instantly draining from his red face. Because you are not mathematically terrified of starvation, you cannot be emotionally or professionally manipulated. You can take massive, highly asymmetric career risks. You can aggressively negotiate for higher equity and remote work instead of desperately begging for a safe, stagnant salary. You can completely walk away from toxic, abusive environments without a single second of financial panic. You have successfully, permanently bought back your own agency. You are completely immune to the terrified logic of the rat race. You own your time. You are now crossing the critical, highly terrifying threshold into your late 40s and early 50s. The physical, undeniable realities of human aging are setting in. The corporate world is ruthlessly, aggressively accelerating, entirely obsessed with cutting legacy costs and hiring cheaper, younger, more desperate talent who are willing to completely burn themselves out for entry-level salaries and the false promise of promotion. This is arguably the most terrifying, desperate decade for the average, high-consuming American worker. You watch the devastating, heartbreaking reality explored in why most men in their 50s will run out of money before they run out of time, play out in stark, real-time tragedy right in front of your eyes. Your former peers, the ones who eagerly bought the black BMWs, the designer watches, and the massive, echoing houses, are now actively panicking. They are getting ruthlessly laid off during massive, impersonal corporate mergers and acquisitions. They have absolutely zero liquid capital to fall back on. They are staring directly down the terrifying barrel of forced early retirement with absolutely nothing to their name but a heavily mortgaged house, a massive pile of rapidly depreciating consumer goods, and a profound sense of existential dread. The fear in their exhausted eyes is absolute, primal, and devastating. They are 50 years old, their prime earning years are permanently behind them, and they are genuinely terrified of starvation and public humiliation. You, however, exist in an entirely different, perfectly insulated financial dimension. You have officially, mathematically achieved escape velocity. The massive, unstoppable snowball effect of compounding interest has completely, totally taken over the mathematical reality of your massive portfolio. The original, painful, grinding $100 a month input from your 20s is now mathematically completely irrelevant. It is a rounding error. It is a single drop of water in an aggressively expanding, massive ocean of wealth. You visualize the massive portfolio doing absolutely all of the heavy lifting. You log into your highly secure account during a random, quiet Thursday afternoon. the broad stock market has a slightly above average week, surging quietly by 2% based on positive inflation data. You watch your portfolio balance literally increase by tens of thousands of dollars in a single unremarkable 5-day period. Your silent, invisible employee just generated more actual, spendable wealth in one single week than you painfully contributed out of your own pocket during the entire grinding first decade of your 20s. You could completely stop contributing right now. You could permanently turn off the automated transfer. You could never put another single dime of your own labor into the market for the rest of your life. It absolutely would not matter. The sheer, terrifying gravitational mass of the capital you have accumulated is so incredibly large that it will continue to violently, aggressively expand entirely on its own. It is a self-sustaining, limitless fusion reactor of wealth generation. You sleep 8 full, uninterrupted hours every single night. You do not obsessively check the stock market news. You do not care about the latest, terrifying inflation report, the Federal Reserve interest rate hikes, or the looming threat of global recession. You are entirely, permanently, structurally insulated from the macroeconomic chaos of the outside world. You successfully bypass the massive generational trap of consumerism. You are no longer working desperately for money. You are simply waiting out the clock on your own terms, completely free to pursue whatever brings you actual joy. The ultimate, long-awaited payoff has finally arrived. You are 62 years old. You are sitting on the quiet, sun-drenched wooden porch of a completely paid-off, beautiful home, holding a cup of high-quality, freshly brewed coffee. The morning air is warm, clean, and perfectly still. There are no frantic, urgent emails waiting in your inbox, no screaming, toxic bosses demanding your attention, no harsh alarm clock set for a brutal 5:30 a.m. wake-up. There is only the absolute, undeniable, deep-seated peace of total, absolute financial sovereignty. You open your laptop one final time to review the grand architecture of your life's work. You log into the exact same brokerage account that you opened 42 long years ago while sitting in that smelling, cramped, freezing apartment. It is time for the final, jaw-dropping, absolutely staggering mathematical reveal. You pull up the lifetime, historical contribution metrics. You look closely at the real math. Over the course of 4 entire decades, through multiple recessions, wars, and economic booms, you diligently, consistently, ruthlessly contributed exactly $100 every single month. The total amount of physical, actual cash you pulled out of your own pocket and injected into the market is roughly $50,000. $50,000 spread out painstakingly over 40 long years. It is less than the total cost of a single mid-range, depreciating luxury SUV. Then you look at the final, aggregated, compounding portfolio value. Assuming the historical, thoroughly documented annualized return rate of the S&P 500, the glowing green number on your screen is not $50,000. It is not $500,000. The massive, undeniable number is approaching, or actively exceeding, $1.2 million. You stare at the bright screen, letting the profound, staggering, life-altering reality of the math wash completely over you. The market did not just match your money, it aggressively, violently multiplied it by a factor of 24. Over $1,150,000 of your total net worth is pure, unadulterated, completely effortless compounding interest. It is money generated entirely by the passage of time, unwavering discipline, and extreme patience. You gently close the laptop. You look out over the quiet horizon. You reflect deeply on the entire, decades-long journey. You think about the painful, grinding, lonely 20s when you felt entirely left behind by your flashy, heavily indebted friends. You think about the toxic, screaming bosses in your 30s who desperately tried to break your spirit and force you into submission. You think about the terrified, desperate, ruined peers in your 50s who realized entirely too late that they permanently traded their ultimate, true freedom for rapidly depreciating status symbols and the illusion of wealth. You realize the core, fundamental, undeniable thesis of the financial universe. True, lasting wealth is absolutely never built by earning a massive, high-stress salary. True wealth is not built by desperately attempting to time the market, or launching a massive, highly risky startup, or blindly buying the latest hyped cryptocurrency. True wealth is built exclusively by the ruthless application of time, unrelenting, mechanical consistency, and the agonizing, ironclad emotional discipline to ignore the noisy, flashy, empty illusion of consumerism. You allowed your money to rest, compound, and aggressively multiply in the silent, dark shadows of the market. You did not just buy $1 million, you successfully, permanently, and undeniably bought your own absolute freedom.